Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. Kneel. The command didn't scream. It thrummed, a low, resonant vibration that cracked the marble floor beneath High Commander Seraphim's boots and forced the air from his lungs in a violent rush. Seraphim Valerius, the golden sword of the Orthodox sects, the alpha whose mere presence usually commanded legions to bow, found his knees hitting the cold stone with a bruising impact. It wasn't voluntary. It was the crushing weight of spiritual pressure, dense and suffocating, radiating from the figure lounging atop the obsidian throne. Chains made of condensed shadow and resentment coiled around Seraphim's wrists, biting into his cultivation meridians, silencing the golden core that usually hummed within his chest. He looked up, sweat stinging his eyes, to gaze at the man the world called a monster, the man Seraphim had been hunting for 3 years, the man who now held the leash to his very soul. I expected more of a fight, Seraphim. The figure purred, descending the dais steps with the predatory grace of a panther. Or has the great light of the realm grown dull without me to sharpen his edges? Kalen Vang, the shadow sovereign, the heretic, and, as the stinging scent of night-blooming jasmine and iron began to saturate the stagnant air of the dungeon, undeniably, impossibly, an omega, the revelation hit Seraphim harder than the spiritual suppression. For years, the cultivation world had assumed Kalen was a defective alpha, too aggressive, too volatile, his power too jagged. But as Kalen stopped inches from Seraphim's kneeling form, tilting the commander's chin up with the tip of a black flute, the biological reality was undeniable. The pheromones were thick, cloying, and sweet, masking a terrifying, rotting undertone of dark magic. "You're in heat," Seraphim rasped, his voice rough with the instinctive, guttural growl of an alpha reacting to a distress signal. "That's why you lured me here. That's why you let yourself be found." Kalen's lips, painted in the natural crimson of high fever, curled into a sneer. "Don't flatter yourself, Valerius. I lured you here to break you. The heat is merely an unfortunate physiological coincidence. A biological joke I intend to ignore." "You can't ignore a heat of this magnitude, Kalen," Seraphim argued, fighting the urge to lean forward, to scent the gland on Kalen's neck that was pulsing frantically beneath his high collar. "Your spiritual energy is fluctuating. If you don't stabilize, your core will shatter. You'll die." "Then I die taking the golden sword with me," Kalen whispered, his eyes flashing with a violet light, the color of corrupted energy. "Tell me, Seraphim, when the council dragged me from my home, when they branded me a heretic and threw me into the burial mounds, did you sleep well? Did your alpha instincts purr with contentment knowing you'd culled the weak?" This was the wound that had festered for 3 years. The betrayal. They had been students together, the brightest stars of their generation. Seraphim, the paragon of righteousness, and Kalen, the brilliant innovator. But Kalen's methods had strayed too close to the taboo, and the Orthodox sects had struck hard. "I didn't know," Seraphim said, the words heavy with a regret he had carried like a stone in his chest. "I was on the northern hunt. By the time I returned, the judgment was passed. The execution order was signed." "Liar," Kalen shrieked, the composure cracking. The shadows in the room flared, forming jagged spikes that hovered inches from Seraphim's eyes. "I saw you, standing on the balcony of the judgment hall. I screamed for you, Seraphim. I begged for you. And you just watched." Seraphim stared into the eyes of the man he had loved in secret, the man whose jagged edges fit perfectly with his own smooth ones. He had to explain. He had to make Kalen understand the logic of that day, even if it sounded like an excuse. "It wasn't me, Kalen," Seraphim said, his voice steady despite the blade of shadow pressing against his jugular. "It was an illusion array. The elders knew. They knew I would burn the sect to the ground to save you. They locked me in the ancestral tomb for 7 days. The man you saw on the balcony was a construct, a lie designed to break your heart so you wouldn't fight back." Kalen froze. The violet light in his eyes wavered, revealing the frantic, glassy haze of the heat fever underneath. The shadows trembled. "A lie," Kalen whispered, his voice sounding small, stripped of its villainous affectation. They said you volunteered to sign the order. I would sooner cut off my own hand," Seraphim vowed, his alpha pheromones flaring, not to dominate, but to comfort. He pushed out the scent of sandalwood and winter frost, wrapping it around Kalen's trembling form. I have spent 3 years searching for you. Not to kill you, Kalen. To bring you home. To apologize. Kalen staggered back, clutching his chest. The wave of Seraphim's scent hit him like a physical blow. His body, already ravaged by the heat he had been suppressing with forbidden poisons, betrayed him. His knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the cold stone floor, gasping. No. Kalen groaned, clawing at his own throat as if trying to rip out the desire blooming there. Don't scent me. I am the Shadow Sovereign. I am a monster. I do not submit. You don't have to submit, Seraphim said softly. He tested the chains binding him. They were strong, forged of resentment, but Kalen's concentration was breaking. The shadows were thinning. Kalen, look at me. You are not a monster. You are a survivor. But right now, you are an Omega in critical distress. Let me help you. Help me. Kalen let out a wet, hysterical laugh. He crawled forward, dragging his heavy, dark robes. He straddled Seraphim's lap, his hands trembling as he grabbed the Alpha's collar. The proximity was electric, a collision of opposing forces. You want to help? Then give me your energy. Let me drain you dry. That is how the wicked cultivate, isn't it? We steal. Kalen leaned in, his fever-hot forehead resting against Seraphim's cool one. If you are truly sorry, let me consume you. It was a test. A twisted, desperate test. Kalen was offering a choice, death or domination. But Seraphim saw through the posturing. He saw the terrified boy who had been thrown into a pit of corpses and forced to claw his way out. Take it, Seraphim whispered. Kalen's eyes widened. What? My energy, Seraphim said. He closed his eyes and deliberately relaxed his spiritual barriers. It was an act of supreme trust, suicide for a cultivator. If my life force settles your core, take it. I offer it freely. Kalen stared at him, stunned. The malice drained from his face, replaced by a profound confusion. He reached out, his pale fingers tracing the sharp line of Seraphim's jaw. He expected resistance. He expected the Alpha to fight for dominance. But Seraphim was offering total surrender. And that broke Kalen's resistance far more effectively than any sword. With a sob, Kalen collapsed forward, burying his face in the crook of Seraphim's neck. The aggressive, rotting scent of dark magic faded, leaving only the pure, sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine. Kalen's true scent, unmasked and vulnerable. It hurts, Kalen whimpered, the heat finally overwhelming his mental defenses. Seraph, it burns. I know, Seraphim murmured. The chains around his wrists dissolved into mist as Kalen lost the will to maintain them. Seraphim's arms immediately went around the slender waist, pulling Kalen flush against him. I've got you. The dynamic in the room shifted instantly. The oppressive atmosphere of the dungeon vanished, replaced by the dense, private intimacy of a nesting ground. Seraphim was no longer the prisoner. He was the anchor. And Kalen was no longer the warden. He was the storm needing to be grounded. My suppressants. They don't work anymore, Kalen confessed, his voice muffled against the fabric of Seraphim's white uniform. The resentful energy. It ate them. You need a knot, Seraphim finished for him, his voice low and rumbling. You need to be marked. It's the only way to cycle the excess yang energy out of your system before it incinerates your meridians. Kalen stiffened. To be marked was to be owned. In the Omegaverse hierarchy, a marked Omega belonged to the Alpha. For someone who had fought so hard for autonomy, who had become a warlord to escape subjugation, it was the ultimate defeat. I won't be your pet, Kalen hissed, pulling back slightly, his eyes flashing with a remnant of defiance. Never a pet, Seraphim corrected, his hands sliding up to cup Kalen's face. He looked at the Omega with an intensity that burned hotter than the fever. A partner. An equal. A cultivation partner. If I mark you, Kalen, I bind my life to yours. If you die, I die. If you fall, I fall. It is not subjugation. It is a dual cultivation pact. Kalen searched Seraphim's golden eyes for any sign of deception. He found only the unwavering truth of the paladin. The orthodox sects will hunt us both, Kalen warned. If the golden sword bonds with the Shadow Sovereign, you will be branded a heretic too. You will lose everything, Seraphim. Your rank, your honor, your family. Seraphim smiled, a rare, genuine expression that transformed his stoic face. I lost everything the day they took you away. I am just reclaiming what is mine. Kalen let out a shuddering breath. The heat was spiking again, sending waves of agonizing pleasure and pain through his body. He couldn't hold on any longer. He didn't want to. Then claim me, Kalen whispered. Before I burn to ash. Seraphim didn't hesitate. He surged upward, capturing Kalen's lips in a kiss that was starving, desperate, and possessive. It wasn't the gentle kiss of a fairy tale. It was the collision of two celestial bodies. Teeth clashed, tongues tangled, and a low growl vibrated in Seraphim's chest. He stood up, lifting Kalen effortlessly in his arms. Kalen wrapped his legs around Seraphim's waist, clinging to him like a lifeline. Seraphim carried him not to the throne, but to the opulent, fur-lined daybed in the corner of the chamber, the only soft thing in this hard, cold castle. He laid Kalen down, hovering over him. The sight of Kalen Vane, the scourge of the cultivation world, writhing beneath him, flushed and needy, snapped the last thread of Seraphim's restraint. Seraph, Kalen pleaded, arching his back. Seraphim descended. He tore away the layers of heavy, dark robes, exposing pale skin marked with the black veins of resentful energy. Seraphim kissed those marks, worshipping the scars that the world called ugly. He kissed the hollow of Kalen's throat, the curve of his ribs, the soft skin of his stomach. You are beautiful, Seraphim murmured against Kalen's skin. Darkness and all. Kalen cried out as Seraphim's hands roamed over him, stimulating the pressure points that eased the pain of the heat and replaced it with blinding pleasure. The sex was a battle of its own. Kalen, even in his delirium, tried to take control, digging his nails into Seraphim's shoulders, biting his lip until it bled. But Seraphim met every challenge with overwhelming, steady power. When Seraphim finally entered him, Kalen screamed, not in pain, but in the shattering release of 3 years of loneliness. The connection was absolute. Their spiritual energies slammed together, gold meets violet. Light meets shadow. Instead of canceling each other out, they swirled into a perfect, harmonious gray. The mark, Seraphim, Kalen begged, his head thrown back, exposing the gland on his neck. Do it. Now, Seraphim buried his face in the crook of Kalen's neck. He inhaled the scent of jasmine and blood, his fangs lengthening. With a primal growl, he bit down. Kalen shrieked as the bond snapped into place. It was a searing brand on his soul. He felt Seraphim's emotions flood his mind, the guilt, the longing, the fierce, protective love. And Seraphim felt Kalen's, the fear, the anger, the relief. They moved together in a rhythm as old as time, the physical pleasure heightened by the spiritual bonding. Every thrust pushed more yang energy into Kalen, balancing his volatile yin energy. The shadows in the room danced, not menacingly, but in celebration, twining around the bedposts like lovers. Hours later, the storm had passed. The dungeon was silent, save for the steady breathing of two men tangled together on the furs. Kalen lay with his head on Seraphim's chest, his fingers idly tracing the sect scars on the alpha's arm. The fever had broken. His eyes were clear, the violet light now a stable, glowing gem rather than a chaotic fire. They will come for us, Kalen said softly, breaking the silence. The council, the elders, when they realize you haven't returned. Seraphim tightened his arm around Kalen, pulling him closer. He kissed the top of the Omega's head, right over the fresh, healing bite mark on his neck. Let them come, Seraphim said, his voice hard with a new resolve. I am done serving a corrupt order. I have the strongest cultivator in the world by my side. Kalen looked up, a smirk playing on his lips, the arrogant, beautiful smirk of the Shadow Sovereign. Oh, and who is the master in this partnership, High Commander? Seraphim grabbed Kalen's hand and kissed the knuckles. In the eyes of the world, you are the villain, and I am the hero. But in this room? Seraphim rolled them over so he was hovering above Kalen again, his golden eyes dark with adoration. In this room, I am yours. Body, heart, and soul. Kalen laughed, a genuine, bright sound that banished the last of the gloom from the abyssal palace. He pulled Seraphim down for a kiss, sealing their pact. Good, Kalen whispered against his lips. Then let's burn the world down and build a new one from the ashes. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. If you enjoyed seeing Seraphim destroy his own chains to claim his love, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a lover who watched you fall, even if they were powerless to stop it? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art. 2 men, BL, Yaoi, man 1. Kalen, long black hair, pale skin with black vein markings, wearing open dark robes, sitting on fur-covered bed, glowing violet eyes, exhausted but smirk expression, leaning back. Man 2, Seraphim, white and gold military uniform unbuttoned, muscular build, short blonde hair, golden eyes, hovering over man 1, protective and possessive expression, hand caressing man 1's face. Background is a dark stone dungeon bedroom. Purple magical aura, chains dissolving into mist, dramatic chiaroscuro lighting, cinematic composition, intricate details, intimate atmosphere.